Actually, my Batman voice actually getting pretty good. Hey everyone. So yeah, I love Batman. Everyone loves Batman. He's one of the best superheroes ever. And there's not a lot else I can say about him that hasn't already been said before. Batman's awesome. So awesome that I have a lot of great movies I want to talk about that with him. Batman has just had so much of a great legacy with the comics, the cartoons, the movies. He's again just a superhero icon. He's everywhere. Everyone loves Batman. I love Batman just as much. So, today I'm going to be sharing with you my favorite Batman movies. Now, there are a lot of Batman films out there, so this top 10 list are going to be based around movies that have Batman as a star. So, this won't just be movies where Batman's like the main hero, the lead. No, this is just mostly revolving around Batman as a main character. So, any movie where Batman's a main character has a certain role that involves with the main cast, those are the movies I include. And of course, they all are. I'm going to talk about how much I love Batman in each movie. It's all just, how great each movie is and a good way to show off Batman and how much fun he can be. So, yeah. Let's do this. To start, let's talk about a movie that honestly, I don't really think really counts into the matching, but I do want to talk about. The first ever Batman film released in theaters was all the way in 1966, and was mostly just a tie-in for the series. Any oldies might remember the original Batman show from the 60s. This show was a more comedic type. Back around this time, comic book movies were not really a thing, and it was mostly just around making cartoons or little serials based on comics that are nothing short of weird, nonsensical, and pretty silly. There was always something to these movies where you cannot really take them seriously, and Batman was no exception. Before he became someone dark, twisted, and hides from the city, this Batman was someone that everyone loved, had such a high, bright colors, and a sidekick that always joins him 24/7. This Batman's pretty silly type, but that's something that people love. Now, personally, I don't love this movie. It does fall into the category of being a little too wacky, but it actually is still pretty decent. I mean, considering that this was the intent, not being a Batman movie you should take seriously, it does that pretty well. Although I just do think that it could have maybe had some seriousness. Adam West's performance is good on a standard level to what his character is, but when you look back at it, he definitely is making the role pretty goofy. So, truth be told, this is mostly just Batman at his silliest. But hey, for the intent, that's fine. It still works as a fine movie for that reason. But, still, many people today will look at this as the dumbest Batman ever, not realizing that Batman and Robin exist. Alright, now let's get into the actual good stuff. Batman Returns, the movie that brings our beloved Michael Keaton back. In a fun Tim Burton sequel, Batman Returns features two new villains, the Penguin of Danny DeVito and Catwoman of Michelle Pfeiffer. Two are probably some of the greatest performances I could expect from these two. I mean, I guess there could have been more for them, but no, these roles are perfect for these characters. They play these parts so greatly. I just realized that the light on top is blocking the numbering. I'm going to probably have to fix that. Alright, that's better. Anyway, about Batman Returns. This sequel involves Batman, who has to face off these two villains, and has to save the city again, this time being Christmas time. The movie definitely goes for a much darker tone compared to the first one. The first one was really dark, but this one goes beyond its darkness. We have, of course, Michelle and Danny providing the creepiest of their characters. They're pretty comic book-like, but they're also really creepy. And they definitely do great at scaring us in some ways. This movie's dark tone and crazy over-the-top moments make it pretty fun. That being said, this movie did create the controversy of, oh, Batman's too dark, can't have kids like this, but truth be told, I can't stand that. Like, come on, well, why can't Batman be this dark? It's Batman. He has to be this dark. So, I don't know. I just feel like that people look too much into these movies. Like, not all movies based on comic books are for kids. Anyway, Batman Returns, a fun movie that goes on a darker level which can definitely look odd at times, but still really impressive and fun. Now here's Batman's first attempt at an animated feature, Mask of the Phantasm. This show comes directly, yeah, I was saying that because this is a movie that comes directly from the animated series. Batman the Animated Series is considered one of the greatest cartoons of all time, because it is. And of course, with the show being so amazing, they just have to let theatrical people be reminded of it. So the show got its own film that was released. Mask of the Phantasm features Batman from the show, this time facing on a new ally called the Phantasm, who is apparently super brutal and dark that even Batman has to look at him like, jeez, that is terrifying. Now, this movie actually underperformed. Surprisingly, the film bombed at the box office, and this is coming from a franchise where Batman and Robin made more money. So, yeah. Why did this movie bomb? I guess it was just because people were too used to seeing Batman in live action moments, and they thought that an animated movie just felt not needed. But even though this movie does feel like it would have worked better as a show special, it is still a pretty fun movie. The animation's pretty great. It kind of represents from the show, but the show's animation's amazing, so that checks out. And all the characters are fun. The reason this movie works as good as the show does. The show is better because it does work in its own intent, as this movie kind of feels more like it would have worked better as just part of the series, and as opposed to being a full movie. It still is fun and exciting for what it's worth. And hey, we got some good voices down. I mean, Kevin Conroy's Batman, or Mark Hamill as the Joker, even though he's only in the movie for less than 10 minutes, is still always a fun time. Batman Begins, the beginning of Christopher Nolan's trilogy. A trilogy that everyone still loves, and definitely is still worth being admired. Batman Begins, I honestly should give more credit. It is one of the few Batman movies where we get an actual origin story of Batman. That's kind of something not many Batman movies do. They mostly just introduce Batman right away. Like, movie opens and boom, there's Batman showing up. Batman Begins sort of kind of gives in more into Batman's origins. Unfortunately, the movie is really good. It is. But the reason that this movie is at all the way up here is because, I don't know, I feel like that they kind of only focus on Batman's origins throughout, like, the first part. The rest of the movie kind of progresses as Batman kind of in a new adventure, and I feel like that part wasn't marketed well enough. Like, it's literally called Batman Begins. I thought the whole movie was going to give Batman more depth, but instead they kind of just had the beginning, like the first 30 minutes or hour or so. They have like the first part involve his origins, and then the rest of the movie is just a new adventure. Still though, it still is a fun adventure, so I can't be too mad. I still love all the action involved, and this definitely does give Christopher Nolan his fun moments. This was the first Nolan film that made him popular somewhat, before he made some great movies like Memento or Insomnia. But this is where Nolan became much bigger, started doing much more movies, and he's just too iconic to be talked about. I just cannot say anything else about Nolan that has not already been mentioned. He's just too goddamn amazing. And then there's the end of this trilogy, Dark Knight Rises. I have just recently talked about this movie and why it kind of falls under being a little overrated. So I don't know if there's really much else I can say. I guess I can just bring up how Batman works as a character in this movie. Works fine. I guess the problems I had that kind of made this fall under not being as good as some of Batman's better movies is the fact that they introduced too many characters who don't seem to have much importance. Like, they introduced Robin, who's pretty forgettable, or even Catwoman, who again is pretty forgettable. The only new character that actually left an impact was Bane. And even then, I feel like Bane's screen time was really all that could save the movie from the other bad new characters. So we can thank Bane for saving this movie from falling under the radar of being even worse. Still though, I just feel like they could have done a little better with some of the other new characters. But still, Dark Knight Rises is a really good Batman film. It does a pretty great job at ending the trilogy. Even if it doesn't do a fantastic job at being a Batman film compared to the top 5, it is still a pretty great conclusion to the trilogy that we all know and love. Yeah, I actually think that Dark Knight Rises is inferior to this. Why? Why do I think that? Why do I think this movie's so great? Let me explain. The reason I think the Lego Batman movie is really great is, well, it honestly, while it is more of a satire of Batman, kind of like with the 60s movie, this movie does actually shift Batman's story arc a little bit. Okay, I mean, yeah, the movie is spoof. There's all sorts of silly moments, most of the jokes reflecting on Batman's nonsense, but they actually do shift. This kind of movie kind of goes for the idea of kind of taking the whole usual Batman story and kind of shifting it around to something different. I think that's what made this movie so amazing to me. The fact that it starts, you go in thinking, oh, I'm gonna laugh my ass off, and you do, but you also actually feel for what happens. Like all the stuff that goes on with these characters is not like something you see in any other Batman movie. It's a new thing, and some people will complain, oh, it's just cliche nonsense. Well, I actually like that this movie doesn't just take a basic Batman plot and spoofs it. It actually does a new plot. So yeah, that's why I love this movie so much. It has great animation, great humor, and a great idea to put Batman in actual new adventure instead of just rehashing old adventures to um, just be comedic. Now, I have the Lego movie here because, like I said in the intro, this is all based on movies where Batman is a star. And he is in this movie. While this movie obviously is not focused entirely on Batman, he is part of the movie's plot. And there is stuff I can say about it. This movie kind of put Batman in the side of being the, hey, look, we got properties from Lego. But the movie overall is a fun time. So I guess that's kind of why Batman's here. I just like to rank these for how great they are to me. So yeah, here's Batman. He's in this movie, and the movie overall has great weight to characters. And you know what? Batman's character works fine in this movie too, because every character in this movie has a good thing going. I think that's honestly that's one thing that makes this movie so great. The fact that there's not a single character I found unbearable. Like every character worked great in their own way. So seeing Batman not get massacred in this movie, despite the trailers making me think they're just gonna make him too comedic, is pretty impressive. I think we all can agree this movie's marketing made it look like the most ridiculous cash grab ever, but then we saw it and bam, we can't stop thinking about it now. I don't know. I just thought I'd bring this up. I just wanted to put this here because, Lego Batman. I love Legos, and I have a lot of Lego Batman sets, so yeah, that's what that is. Alright, let's get back to actually serious Batman. This is V Batman, the film of Batman's new adventure with Robert Pattinson as the Dark Knight. Now, Pattinson on paper seemed like a weird idea. I mean, this is Edward Cullen we're talking about. This is the guy that made us all shriek like, wow, can a man get any hotter? I don't know. But now he's Batman, and he surprised us with how good it works. It's pretty much like every Batman. We think, I don't know, but then he works out great. Unless, of course, you're George Clooney or Ben Affleck. Anyway, this Batman is a great one because he kind of does do kind of both ways. For one, this movie seems to do great at kind of showing him more to his Bruce Wayne arc. Sort of like with the Dark Knight trilogy. So, truth be told, this movie is still able to work on its own because it introduces a lot of new villains, and they all work really amazingly. First, of course, is the Riddler. This Riddler is beyond creepy. While the Riddler in Batman Forever took more as the comedic relief villain, and Jim Carrey definitely did great at making him a funny villain, it kind of was just made for laughs. This villain, he is terrifying. He is the Riddler at the most terrifying. Every time this Riddler is there, he scares all of us. He even scares Batman a few times, I think. I don't know. I just feel like the fact that this Riddler actually has a terrifying arc to such a silly idea of riddle me this is, quite frankly, pretty impressive. I don't think we've ever seen the Riddler be this serious before. I think every time the Riddler has appeared in a Batman piece of media, he's always there to be like, riddle me this, Batman, and just be silly. But this movie actually makes him terrifying. Now, the Penguin and Catwoman also have roles in this, and I gotta admit, I kind of actually like the roles in here pretty great. While their roles in Batman Returns, I was about to say Forever again. While Batman Returns did a great job with Michelle and Danny DeVito's performance, I gotta admit those two kind of worked in more as comic book characters. They kind of felt more comic accurate to how great they were. These fellas kind of fit in more with the realistic world of Batman, a world where things are really happening and such. So that's kind of what I think. I think both work in their own separate way. The ones in Batman Returns work for the comic book adaptation. These work for bringing an actual superhero to life. But yeah, it does great. The movie is really long too. Yeah, it's like almost 3 hours, but those are fun. The fact that I was able to sit for this movie and understand a lot of stuff that was going on despite it being almost 3 hours is honestly something that makes the movie great. That's kind of how most great movies are to me. Movies that are really long, yet I actually can follow. That's kind of one thing that appeals to me. Movies that are super long, yet actually keep me invested. And that's what this movie does. Now here's the Batman that, to me, started it all. Batman from Tim Burton. This is the beginning of our character on the big screen, and for real this time. It's not just a tie-in for a show. No, this is where Batman makes his big screen appearance. This movie brings us Michael Keaton as Batman, and I know a lot of people saw this at first when it first out. I was like, why him? And then he shows up in this movie, and he is stellar. Like Michael Keaton as Batman, he's just too goddamn amazing. He just does too much to make this role so great, and that's just amazing. And of course, we could talk about some other performances too, like Jack Nicholson as the Joker. This is another one I actually was a little skeptical of because Nicholson has had some fun performances, but can he really pull off the Joker? Sure can. He certainly can. He can definitely make the Joker work just as amazingly as Keaton can make Batman work. And seeing this movie take all these comic tropes and actually put them into this world is something that only Tim Burton can accomplish. His vision, being able to take such a gothic and violent world of Batman and actually make it work, is just still really amazing to this day. The fact that this was back when comic book movies were just not really something people go for. Really, it was kind of a small thing. But with Batman, we all were ready to see more superhero movies take off. So Batman is what really made superhero movies start expanding more. Boy, I gotta tell you, this movie is all the hype. It's still amazing to this day. The effects are great. The cinematography is amazing. The performances, everything about this movie has aged really well. I guess one or two things may look a little tacky by today's standards, but that's very minimum to me. The movie has still aged really amazingly, and I still consider this Batman to be the best way to begin our superheroes adventure on the big screen. What the hell else would you expect? It's The Dark Knight, okay? This is like one of the greatest movies ever made. This movie's just too much for me, okay? The Dark Knight's greatness comes from everything. The action, the performances, the visuals, the score, the story. Not a single thing in this movie was done in a bad way. The movie really kept us interested in what to expect. We were giving us this Batman an actual event. This honestly just feels like the better way to introduce our character in Christopher Nolan's world. While I'm thankful for Batman Begins, Dark Knight is how I feel most people would begin seeing Batman in this form. It's honestly the best way to show it off. It's just, we got Christian Bale as Batman. He perfects in giving this Batman something to look at more. True, when he is Batman, the voice can be a little much, but honestly, he's just pulling off for the role, and there's got to be a lot to love when he's able to do all this action and not give a shit at times. And that certainly cannot be denied about Heath Ledger either. His Joker is... I can't even say anything more. His Joker is just the greatest villain performance ever. It's frightening, it's cool, it's just everything. And again, it's another one of those things that you look at first and you're like, why Why choose him? That's the worst choice ever. And then you watch the movie, and you forget that. You're just like, damn, this Heath Ledger guy, he's not he's not the Joker I expected. He is a Joker that is the Joker, okay? He's the Joker. So, yeah. I said enough. Dark Knight is a great movie. It's still up there as one of my favorite films ever. And it's definitely the best way to see Batman. Out of all the Batman movies that exist, this one does too much to make it work. Hey everyone, I'm Batman. See this? I made this. See, I have a ton of Lego Batman shots out there. Alright, I think I talked enough about Batman today, so, yeah. That's it.